From WFIU in Bloomington, Indiana, I'm Kate Young, and this is Earth Eats.
Sniff it.
Yep.
If they're smelly, stinky, and it's not persimmon.
This week on Earth Eats Wild, we explore the fruits of fall, and the nuts, and even the beans. Forager Chef Alan Bergo fancies the Kentucky coffee bean in its green state. Liz Barnhart crafts a deep purple elderberry syrup. Keako Liff takes a aromatic walk down memory lane with ginkgo nuts. And we talk persimmons with a researcher in folklore and library science. That's all just ahead. Stay with us. Thanks for listening to Earth Eats Wild.
Oh, wow, look at it.
I know, it's just dripping with berries.
I was reading about how there's a toxic lookalike, kind of. It's poison hemlock.
Huh.
They really look nothing alike. Besides, the white flowers around the same time, but, this is just significantly different.
Well, you can see, some of them the birds have been eating off of, so they're not, full clusters, but there's some. This is a good looking one.
The birds eating them are actually, a good indicator of when you should be harvesting them. So, once the birds start to get them, you know that they're probably ripe.
Oh, that's good to know. Elderberries. We're talking about elderberries. Native to North America, they grow wild around here, but they're also cultivated. I'm with Liz Barnhart, her friends call her Lou, and we're in my yard where I have a massive elderberry bush, or tree, whose branches push neighbors off the sidewalk every summer until I get a chance to cut it back. It's hard to cut branches laden with clusters of deep purple berries like they are right now. Liz works at the Hub. It's a food pantry and community food resource center here in Bloomington, and she teaches a wild edibles class there. We're gathering some elderberries here and then taking them over to the Hub's kitchen to make a syrup with them. Nice.
Cool. Man, it's so pretty. Another key indicator of ripeness is when the stems start to turn this red color, right? So when they're still growing the berries on, they're greener, but once it becomes that really vibrant purpley red, it is time to go.
That's interesting. It's almost like the berry is leaching some of the purple down into the stem or something. I had not noticed that. I didn't realize that they turned red.
Yeah, it's super cool. And you can see these here are still green. Do you know the whole plant is toxic? Yeah, the leaves, stem, bark, berries, and the only reason why we can eat the berries is because we have to process them and cook them. And then people also harvest from the same plant twice a year because you can take the elderflowers, you can make liqueur, you can make fritters, you can make tea with them. But obviously, if you're going to harvest twice, you can't just clear the whole plant of flowers because the flowers turn into the berries. This is a really easy one for people who are trying to get into foraging. It is very striking. The flowers are widespread and beautiful and white, and the berries are they don't look like anything else. But one of the indicators that it is an elderberry is that there are bumps on the stem, this bumpy texture right here. If you want to be triple sure, always look at the stem. And these are so pretty too. Usually when you find them more wild and not cultivated, they like to grow next to water sources, but they do not like to be wet. So that is their preferred living place.
After we gathered the berries, we headed over to the Hub. The most common preparation for elderberry is to make a syrup. Elderberry syrup has been used as folk medicine to treat colds and flus or as a preventative in the wintertime. I know people who take a spoonful of elderberry syrup every morning all winter long.
It's one of the most commonly used medicinal plants in the world. It's one of the few that you can just find at Kroger. You can find it at most grocery stores. It's been studied a lot more than a lot of medicinal wild plants.
And some of those medicinal claims are slowly being validated by the recent research. Black European elderberry is rich in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidant compounds, and it's been found to have anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties. Due to the high content of vitamins and polyphenols, elderberry is sometimes used as an overall immune system booster, especially for preventing flu.
The bark used to be used as a way to induce vomiting. It just made you sick. But I like that it was medicinal vomiting. Yeah. It's also just super tasty.
Yeah.
A little bitter, a little bit sweet.
Yeah, I think it's nice on pancakes or waffles or ice cream or yogurt, whatever. Liz, or Lou, teaches a foraging class at the Hub, also known as Mother Hubbard's Cupboard, and she teaches a class at Ivy Tech and offers workshops through an enterprise called Forage and Feasts that she runs with her friend Jasper. I wanted to know how long she'd been foraging and how she got into it.
I have been foraging for plants around southern Indiana for 12 years now, I think. I started foraging when I moved here. I was 19 and I was very poor, and I was in school, but I was paying for all of my schooling out of pocket, and I had 3 jobs, and I still couldn't make ends meet. I couldn't afford food, right? And I tried to get on Snap, but because I was a student, I was denied. And so I kind of formed this obsession. It was a survival tactic, but it felt like an obsession of trying to eat for free in town. So at that time, I was also working at Blooming Foods, and so back then they had the chump where they would put produce that was bruised or couldn't be sold, and I would take that. And then I was like, wow, there's just food out there. There's just persimmon trees that you can just go take persimmons from. There's just mushrooms that just grow on the ground that you can eat. So I just became fascinated with that. And I lived without paying for food mostly for at least a year, which I think was impressive.
That is impressive because you've got to really know a lot to find wild food year-round, I feel like.
Or you have to be really brave, which could also be kind of stupid, but really brave.
It was time to get started on the elderberry syrup.
When people are processing elderberries, obviously these berries are super tiny. If you try to pick them off one by one, you are going to have not only purple fingers, but it is going to take you forever. Some people will take a 5-gallon bucket and they'll just whack the berries against the side of the bucket. That way, not only are they coming off on their own and it kind of speeds up the process, but the berries that aren't yet completely ripe aren't going to pop off. So that's one way. Yeah, that way works too. But then you see you still get some stem in there. So you're definitely going to have to go through and sort out the little bits of stem. They're not going to hurt you, but I don't think it's going to add anything for you. And then another way that people say that they like to remove the berries is they use a fork.
Oh, now that makes sense. I hadn't thought of that. I took a bunch of them off their stem one by one.
And how was that?
Meditative.
Yeah, I guess it could be kind of cathartic, just sitting there. But this method also works pretty well. Either method works. Honestly, if you want to pick them all off by hand, knock yourself out. I definitely, the first few times that I processed them, sat on my porch and just pulled off every single berry. The last time I did that, I had a wedding the next day, and I went to this very nice wedding with my partner, meeting all of his childhood friends with purple stained fingers, and I could not get it off.
They probably thought you were very cool.
Yeah.
I liked picking them off one by one. I thought it was kind of, like I said, meditative. It's just one of those things where you just kind of get into it and slow down.
Man, that is a hard thing to do these days. I think that's another thing about foraging too, is that it really forces you to slow down and take inventory of your environment. You're going to spend hours looking for stuff, and you might find it, or you might not. And you have to be okay with that. And it's also just fun. It's fun to walk around in the woods, not look at your phone for a couple hours.
The last method we tried was freezing the berries and tapping them against the side of the bowl. A lot more of them popped off on their own.
It's just so much easier. You can just brush them off the branch.
Once the berries are off the stems, mash them a bit with a potato masher, and then it's pretty straightforward. 1 part berries, 1 part water, and 1 part honey.
Oh my gosh, that water is so pretty.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty. Some recipes call for spices like cinnamon, cloves, ginger. I prefer the straight-up elderberry with no added spices. I talked Liz out of the cinnamon for this one, but she added ginger and allspice.
Oh man, that ginger like immediately adds a really nice smell to it.
Set the honey aside and bring the berries, water, and spices to a simmer. Cook for about 30 minutes, stirring and keeping an eye on it. Remove from the heat and strain with a fine sieve or through cheesecloth. Once the mixture is cooled a bit, stir in the honey.
2 cups of honey, which is a lot of honey.
I like that it's honey and not sugar though, because when you think of taking this as a medicine, honey is so great for like sore throats and stuff.
Yeah, that's very true. It's also really satisfying to pour. It's like a little waterfall. I'm gonna get a little spatula. It feels wrong to waste honey.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Every drop. Some bee worked really hard for that.
Really hard. I think about that a lot as I get honey on like every surface.
The syrup is complete. At this point, you could choose to can it or cool it down completely in the fridge and then freeze it.
I think because I've had to take elderberries when I was sick before, because they've got like cold medicine and like gummies and stuff, that the smell now reminds me of cough medicine, and it makes me feel like I'm sick.
But don't let that discourage you. It's easy to make elderberry syrup, and it tastes great. You can take it as an immune booster, a spoonful every day, or you can pour it on your pancakes and ice cream, or stir it into a glass of lemonade and sparkling water. It's delightful. I've been speaking with Liz Barnhart. She teaches wild edibles classes at the Hub, Ivy Tech, and through Forage and Feasts. There's more wild food ahead after a quick break. Stay with us. We're back. I'm Kate Young, and this is Earth Eats Wild. I've been curious about ginkgo for years. The trees are gorgeous with their fan-shaped leaves that turn bright yellow in the fall and tend to drop all at once, which is a magical experience if you happen to catch it. I knew people enjoyed the ginkgo nuts, but I didn't know how. The fruit that surrounds them is stinky and very unappealing. I had the chance to talk with Keako Liff, who grew up in Tokyo, surrounded by ginkgo.
Okay, my name is Keako Liff. I'm from Japan. I have lived in Bloomington over 9 years.
And we are on the IU campus, right now walking from the sample gates towards a very special tree.
So do you call ginkgo nuts? How do you pronounce it in English?
I think we call it ginkgo.
Ginkgo, okay.
How do you pronounce it?
Ginnan.
Oh, okay.
Sounds similar, right? If you visit Japan, especially Tokyo cities, in the fall, you will see a lot of beautiful yellow ginkgo nuts trees lining the street. And then I think a lot of people don't know, but the ginkgo tree is kind of prefecture tree of Tokyo, symbolic tree in Tokyo. And I just learned that because the ginkgo nuts, I think have a lot of water, or I'm not sure, but they are relatively resistant to fire. So they are planted for disaster prevention. That's why there are you can see a lot of trees in that, especially in the city area.
That's very interesting. Okay, so the tree themselves are somehow resistant to fire.
Yeah, so that's if you go there are a lot of ginkgo trees in Tokyo.
And my understanding is that there's a male and a female, and so if you have the male trees, they're not really dropping all the fruit, but the female ones certainly are. And a lot of people are unhappy with that.
I know. There are some.
So here we are. These are the trees, and I think maybe that's the female and that's the male. So that's also a female. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I see fruit on that one too.
Yeah, but they need male trees somewhere.
Yeah.
In the area.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some. Wow. So yeah, as you can see, it's all over under the canopy. It's just littered with these little pale orange globes.
Is it okay to pick them up?
Yeah. No, it's totally okay.
Okay. I really think they don't care if we pick up stinky nuts.
Oh yeah, they'll be happy that we clean any of these up.
Property, so I was not sure.
Yeah, so they're pale orange, and I think some people might confuse them with a persimmon if they don't know. I don't think they really look like persimmons, but they kind of do. And so, yeah, the key is what?
Sniff it.
Yep.
If they're smelly, stinky, and it's not persimmon. Yep. So I recommend I don't want to pick the fruits which might be on the ground for a long time. I want to have a really green, fresh nuts inside, and I think old nuts on on the ground for a long time might have yellow and have a more bitterness.
Okay, so, that is good to know.
Yeah, I learned that I watched a TV show. I forgot the name of the title, but Oishi Japan, Oishi Nippon by NHK. And they featured on the ginkgo nut, and then a professional farmer who make and sell the ginkgo nuts, they actually pick the nuts from the tree, not on the ground. So I think they really want to have new fresh nuts.
Well, that is good to know, because someone else that I was talking to said that she really likes to just let the rain wash all the fruit off of them, and then she just picks up the nuts. But you're saying that wouldn't be such a good idea, because then they're going to be older and the nuts themselves might not taste that good.
Maybe you could try. I mean, it's edible, but I like the fresh one.
And you think we shouldn't touch them?
Yeah, I don't want to. Some people have rashes when you touch the orange part. So I use chopsticks to pick them up, or I might use the plastic globes so that I don't have to touch it directly. Can you distinguish old and new?
Yeah, I feel like the ones that are maybe a little less wrinkly and just look fuller.
Yeah, I think these are kind of old. When you see the nuts on the tree, you know what the fresh means, right?
There's so many. It's incredible. Okay, so the smell, I think what people object to, it's kind of the same smell that you get with a papaya, where it has that enzyme that reminds you kind of vomit because it's kind of digesting or something, and it smells bad, and I'm sure the fruit probably doesn't taste very good, but the nut is what we're after.
Yeah. When I was in elementary school, I went to the school in Tokyo, and we used to walk from the station to the school, and all I thought was how to avoid stepping on the nuts, because there are a lot of nuts on the street, and I needed a tiptoe or jump over the nuts. And then there was a big ginkgo nut trees on our playground of the school, and then sometimes I needed to line up by the trees or listen to the teacher for 10 minutes by the tree. So I remembered it was so smelly, and I didn't like that. But it's funny stories that after moving to the United States, I was upset when I see almost all of the ginkgo tree not having the nuts, because I understand people want to have the male one, and then once I saw the tree with nuts, I was so excited, and I kind of approached and I sniffed them, and then I feel oh, this is like a home. So the smell connect me and hometown in Bloomington in a weird way, but I like it.
That totally makes sense to me. I don't actually think they smell that bad, but I understand why people don't like them.
Yes, I totally get it. But right now it's kind of nostalgic moment for me. Japan, so we eat I don't know what you call it, seeds. So even at the really high-end Japanese kaiseki restaurant or yakitori, which means like grilled chickens restaurant, they serve us ginkgo nuts as like full delicacy, like a seasonal delicacy. But I would like to emphasize you shouldn't eat a lot. Even at the restaurant, they serve only like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the internet, they say we shouldn't eat more than 10.
Yeah, that was my understanding too. And it's not so much that it's poison, but that you could get upset stomach or...
Just enjoy the hint of the fall. That's it.
Yeah. It's a gorgeous tree. These trees are beautiful. They're huge. They look really old to me. And their branches are really spreading out into a beautiful canopy. The ones on my street that don't have the fruit, they're very upright. Like they're just growing straight up. They're not branching out. And I don't know if that has anything to do with male or female, but these are just prettier. Oh, look, so here's one that's maybe a male.
Yeah, I need to double check, but I think there are not a lot, but they are very famous ginkgo nuts trees in Japan which survived the World War II. There are several huge ginkgo nut trees which tells us some stories, and then there are a lot of picture books about the trees and the stories behind that.
When they serve them to you in the bar, how are they serving them?
So at the like grilled chicken place, like yakitori place, they just use a skewer, right? Like, and then just 3 or 4 ginkgo nuts, grill them, and then sprinkle salt. That's it.
Okay. And so have they peeled them?
Yeah, they peel them. Like, yeah, you can see beautiful kind of jade color inside, and then the texture is a little bit like a little bit like mochi when it's really fresh. Maybe they have some starch. And at the high-end kaiseki restaurant, sometimes they put them in savory custard. We call it chawanmushi, or they put ginkgo nuts and like a dumplings.
Oh, that sounds really good.
And then sometimes they like a tempura, like fry them with the butter.
Yeah, all that sounds good.
Yeah, once you taste one or two, and then you will have a lot of ideas. Because, I can use for that or this or...
But it sounds like as a snack, just kind of simply cooked with salt is a common way.
And then I highly recommend you should watch the NHK TV show that there are fancy restaurant chefs to make gorgeous high-end dishes with the ginkgo nuts.
Okay, I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure I link to that so people can watch it.
So the simplest way to cook is this is the prepared.
Okay, so you already washed all those and everything.
Yeah, washed. So I'm gonna demonstrate how to prepare them because I don't want to touch them directly. I usually put them in the plastic bag and then squeeze them out first.
Smart. Yeah, I can really smell it now. My coworkers are going to be unhappy with me.
Okay, just do like 3 then.
Okay.
And then wash. This is a sponge, which used to be a fishing net, kind of upcycle one.
Nice.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, it looks like a great thing to scrub things with.
Scrub things.
And yet it doesn't hold the water.
Yeah. Dry them up outside under the sun for maybe 2-3 days.
Okay, so that's another good reason for getting them when they're fresh is you got to dry them for a couple days anyway. So you want to get them as fresh as possible.
Yeah, and then I freeze them after this being dried.
Just so you can keep them.
Because we don't eat a lot of them at once. I want to use just 1 or 2 for my dishes.
Yes.
So this is the dried one. Put in the paper bag and fold it. And we'll start with maybe 30 seconds. So you might hear popping sounds from 1 or 2, and then you could stop. Oh, see?
Oh, cool. So they just kind of pop open. Oh, neat. It smells really good. It smells really nutty. Yeah. It is like mochi.
Right?
It's so chewy and soft.
Isn't it good?
Yeah, I mean, the other ones I felt like were more like a bean.
Because this is not like
This is so great.
cut, freshly cut.
Oh my gosh. No, I see why people love them. That's really fun. If you got them at the yakitori place, would it be kind of like this?
Yeah.
Would it have that softness?
Yeah, softness like this, but they use like a charcoal grill, so it's more has more fragrance and aroma than just putting it on the microwave. I bet, you know. But I think
Yeah, it's more like roasted.
Yeah, more roasted. But I think texture is like if you have a ginkgo nuts at the good yakitori place, which could be much better than this. But yeah.
Oh, it's delicious. I love it.
So I think people like just put it in the microwave and eat it as it is, you know.
So do you feel like these ones you just washed, they have to be dried, or could we cook them right away if we wanted?
I Google and a lot of I think almost all of the websites said dry them up.
Okay.
Maybe because some of the elements from the orange part are still remain on the shell. So and then I think sun kind of dried it up.
Yeah, no, sun sounds like the perfect solution for that stuff.
So you don't smell. I mean, still we can have some sense of the smell from the pit, even after you dry them up. But I think less smelly than.
Yeah, the only way that I've had them was just recently. Someone showed me how they cook them, and they just put them in a really hot cast iron skillet with a good lid, and they get them really hot, and they pop them just like in the microwave, but they just do it on the stove.
It's like popcorns, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think a traditional way is that we do the same thing, like with the ginkgo nuts on the iron, like a pan, and just keep firing them.
Till they kind of pop open. Maybe everyone doesn't pop open, but some of them do. Yeah. Oh, I think they're delicious. Well, thank you so much for doing this and talking with me and cooking these.
I'm so happy, and I really want to share that. I want to let people know they are edibles and they are yummy if you pick the right one.
That was Keako Liff, who grew up in Tokyo and now lives in Bloomington, Indiana. For photos of our ginkgo session and a link to the YouTube series Keiko mentioned, visit eartheats.org or check out Earth Eats on Instagram and Facebook. This story was produced by Alexis Carvajal. Kate Young here. This is Earth Eats Eats Wild. Throughout the creation of this series on wild food, I've consulted more than once the Forager Chef website. I featured the Forager Chef Alan Bergo in an earlier episode about spruce tips. Remember the ice cream? He's also one of the only people I know who has experimented with green Kentucky coffee tree beans, and so I wanted to talk to him about that. If you are confused, I mean, they don't grow coffee in Kentucky. True, but there is a tree called a Kentucky coffee tree, and it grows here in Indiana too. I'll let Alan Bergo explain.
The Kentucky coffee tree, it's a good example of a few different things of how something can be poisonous and edible at the same time, of how like ethnobotanical research and kind of looking at how cultures will use things and looking for historical examples can be important. And yeah, man, they're so interesting. So we knew, like my mentor, Sam Thayer, extremely talented forager. I knew about Kentucky coffee tree, and they call it Kentucky coffee tree because it's a leguminous tree. It's Gymnocladus dioicus, and it's planted. There's tons of them in St. Paul and Minneapolis because there should be a rot and fungus disease-resistant tree. Beautiful, large shade tree, kind of one of these trees they're planting that can give shade and kind of take the place of the American elm and now the ash trees, which are just dropping like dominoes. And they are a leguminous tree, and so they make this giant pod with beans in it. And people would take the beans and roast them after the pods fall. You can harvest the pods in the middle of the winter, in the fall, in the spring. They have a really, really wide kind of time range when they can be harvested. And they'll take this shell that encloses the bean. It gets hard like steel when they're ripe. and you would have to sit there and dry them out and then like crack them with a hammer one by one for this tiny little yellow bean that's inside. I knew that the trees were there and that you could do some things with them. I also knew that you probably shouldn't eat them fresh because there's all kinds of alkaloids and things in them. Then I had a guy in New York tell me that he had been eating the unripe green seeds. And that I thought was really interesting because when they're green, these things are just gorgeous. And they're kind of like giant fava beans in this really cool looking pod. And if you get the right tree where they're at an easy height where you can harvest a lot of them, you can get a whole bunch of them. And I thought to myself, like, this could be like a legitimate food source. And if they can be a legitimate food source, I think some more research needs to be done on that. I think the potential is definitely there. It's just with kind of the processing, and there just needs to be more testing done by food scientists and people that are more talented with the science and toxicology than I am. So I took the green. After this guy started sending me messages, I went out and I tried it myself. And I did a whole bunch of experiments, just cooked them, every which way for a number of weeks, and then intentionally tried to poison myself to see if I could do it. And I ate pounds of them. Over about 4 ounces is probably the most that I ate in one sitting, because I'd always want to, first and foremost, make sure things are safe. And, people can have an intolerance or, an allergy. I don't really like to use allergy because that implies a histamine reaction, but people can have an intolerance to things or not be able to digest things. And that can vary widely from person to person, especially with things like chicken of the woods. A lot of people get a reaction from chicken of the woods. That could be indigestion. That could be projectile vomiting. That could be 2 days of gastrointestinal distress. That could just be your lips going numb. That varies widely. So I try to really do my due diligence. So I, just like Sam Thayer will do with things, I tried to eat the plants until I got sick. After I boiled them for, like 40 minutes to an hour to like 2 hours. And they have this really rubbery shell that's on them so that you can eat it. It's not my favorite. It's more work to take the bean out of that rubbery shell. But that is the best way to really enjoy them, is to take that bean out and discard that shell. And that is also going to wash off. They have a very strange mucilaginous quality. So if I just take the beans and, ferment them in brine or something like that, after a day or two in the fridge, it's just going to be like ectoplasm. It's going to be like a jar filled with goo, and then I'll have to rinse the beans off, and then you can eat them again from there or put them back in water, but then they will do it again. And unless you take them out of that rubbery shell, it'll kind of keep doing this. So they're a really interesting thing, and it's something I don't think people should, sit and eat lots of them, but it's also been, boiling in a couple changes of water for 40 minutes to an hour. We're probably leaching out as much of the stuff in there that we wouldn't want to eat as possible. So I do think there's a lot of potential there with the Kentucky coffee tree.
You refer to them as mastodon beans. Is that what you call them?
Yes.
Just because they're so giant and dinosaur-like?
No, because these trees, they have beans. These trees are very tall, and they have food at the top for a reason. These pods are way too big for any bird to eat. These were food for giant herbivores. And one of the reasons that these trees have declined is because we don't have megafauna that have, trunks that can reach, 70, 80 feet in the air. That's why one of the places that we'll see Kentucky coffee tree now is along rivers, because then the pods can fall into the water, and that functions as a method of seed dispersal,
right,
as opposed to them coming out of the rear of a mastodon.
Well, I think they're really a lot of fun. I had so much fun this year trying to find them, first of all. And then once I found one, I was able, there were enough low branches that I was able to harvest some. And I did all the things that you talked about, and it was really delightful. Yeah, they're so good. I love them. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information with people and doing this research, taking the
trying to poison
the time
myself.
To poison yourself. Yeah, to find out how many's too many. Yeah, so I appreciate that. I appreciate this work that you do. And before we go, I know this is something that you're doing every day and it's your life. But for those of us who, it isn't our whole lives, but it's something that we might be interested in trying, could you talk a little bit about foraging and cooking with wild foods and just kind of what it means to you, or just kind of the joy it can bring to people's lives?
I think there's a lot of ways that foraging can bring joy and interest into people's lives. I mean, it can quite literally change your life. I mean, food is I call it like the great equalizer. Everyone eats, and everyone eats every single day. Food is something that is infinitely relatable for every person in the world. And we also like the new and interesting. And we are hardwired as people to get a flush of dopamine and endorphins when we find food outside. Obviously, foraging is a learned skill, but it's one that is extremely rewarding. And it's a way that you can, not only can we go outside and get free food, whether that's mushroom or just nettles in your garden or something like that, but you will see the landscape in a completely different way. And it turns everywhere I go into a giant scavenger hunt, and everything is exciting now. I mean, it felt like after I started hunting plants too, that kind of opened up another level, another like achievement unlocked in my life, because every single place I go, I will see similar things that I will see in my yard or that I'll see in Minnesota in the Midwest, and I'll also see new things. Or if I go to Arizona, I will see like a completely alien, totally different landscape that's filled with all kinds of new things to learn, all kinds of new free food that are exciting to learn and understand and rewarding to learn how to process and utilize, and basically turn all of my hikes with my dad down there in Arizona in the winter into edible scavenger hunts. And that enthusiasm is something that, that transfers to other people. It's something you can do with your family. It's something that people have been doing with their families for thousands of years. And I think that human connection, that, meaningful interaction with people that you love and care about, this is something you can do together, something you can do that will get everyone excited. And I mean, for example, a lot of people can be scared about wild food or think like, why are you eating weeds? Or mushrooms will kill you. A great example is my father, who is a conventional corn and soybean farmer and grows 2,000 acres of corn and soybean on our ancestral land about 2 hours west of here. My dad has spent his entire life fighting amaranth, purslane, nettles, wheat lacoche, corn smut. It's like the plague. Like these things, he will purchase specific chemicals to kill these things, to remove them from the food crop. But that appreciation for wild food, once you kind of unlock that instinct, because we're all descended from foragers somewhere down the line. Even my dad, now every spring, once he had his first taste of stinging nettle soup, and he understood that sure doesn't taste like a weed. That sure tastes like really, really, really good. Like that's one of the best soups I've ever had in my life good. Every spring, he now grows his own nettles. He will go out and pick amaranth and cook these plants and enjoy them. And he has had a complete paradigm shift that he had held for his entire adult life. To introduce people to things like that and help them discover something old, and to see the joy that it brings people, how it can literally quite change people's lives and totally have the scales fall off their eyes to see the food is all around us. It's just a great joy in my life, and one that is also cheap and free, that anyone can do, that can unite people and bring us together. There's so many things, so many reasons that I can list of why foraging is awesome. There's too many things to even list.
There you have it. You heard it directly from the Forager Chef himself. Maybe it's time to get out there and try some foraging for yourself. I hope you also heard the caution he expressed, and I want to reiterate here again, when it comes to harvesting wild food, first of all, you need to be certain that you have properly identified the plant or mushroom before you consume it. You can do this by foraging with an expert. You can also confirm using multiple reliable sources for identification. Sources like official field guides, preferably more than one. Official online sources with lots of photos to compare with what you've found. Noting if there are toxic lookalikes and how to determine the difference. Then, even when you have positive ID, proceed with caution when you're first tasting what you've foraged. Sample small amounts at first, and with some foods like the ginkgo nut, limit your intake to avoid an upset stomach. As Alan noted, some people tolerate certain foods better than others. I followed all of Alan's instructions for the green Kentucky coffee bean that I harvested, and they were spectacular. After cooking them and pouring out the water and cooking them and pouring out the water several times, I put them in a brine and then I marinated them in an aromatic herb oil. We served them on a charcuterie board and they were a hit, like a special olive. There were so few of them that no one was tempted to eat too many anyway. They were a treat to sample and to savor. Learn all about them on the Forager Chef website. Find the link in our show post at eartheats.org. We will also have links to some of those reliable sources I was talking about to help you get a positive identification for anything you forage. A Midwest foraged food that's likely more familiar than green Kentucky coffee tree pods is the persimmon. The American persimmon, to be precise. It's native to North America and abundant in the Midwest. On Earth Eats, we've done plenty of stories and whole episodes about persimmons. You can find those in our archive, eartheats.org. Our guest, Madison Sissel, has been learning about the American persimmon through her research in library science and folklore at Indiana University. Her project, Voices of Pawpaws and Persimmons, is a digital archive of interviews about experiences with persimmons and pawpaws and objects associated with those experiences. She refers to it as a gathering spot for those interested in native foodways. Her research focuses on persimmon and pawpaw, but here we're just going to talk about persimmon. I asked Madison to start with a description of the fruit.
Yeah, the American persimmons, they almost look like a small tomato, so they're round and kind of ball or sphere shaped. And the American persimmons are smaller than the Asian persimmons, which you can find more like on the West Coast. But they're kind of like an orangey red color, and they'll have a skin that looks filmy or almost chalky at times.
Uh-huh.
And it almost looks like, because you want them when they're ripe, they'll have fallen from the ground. So they'll almost look busted a little bit, like a rotten tomato maybe.
And sometimes when they've fallen, the skin gets a little bit wrinkly, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, depending on the type.
Yeah, so that's another characteristic. Yeah, and that just means it's okay to eat.
Yeah. So what about the flavor? Let's talk a little bit about the flavor of a persimmon.
It was kind of amazing to me because I don't think I had had an American persimmon until I was an adult and moved to Indiana. And I was pretty shocked by the sweetness of it and like the complexity of spice and caramel in it. And I really like this one variety from a farmer that I befriended. It's the Autumn 2 variety, but he said if I could rename this variety, it'd be like pumpkin spice latte. And it's just like incredible, like the cinnamon and I guess like pumpkin-y flavors that you're getting from this fruit. It's kind of wild to me how sweet they are.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The recipe that we cook the most in our house is a persimmon bread. And it's actually called a persimmon tea cake. And what I love about it is there's no spice added.
Yeah.
You just use the persimmon as the flavoring. So there's no cinnamon, there's no nutmeg, there's no allspice. We don't do any of those. And I love it because you think there's all these spices in it when you eat it. It tastes like kind of a pumpkin spice bread.
Yeah.
But it's distinctive to persimmon. Like I think that also has its own distinct flavor.
Yeah. And I guess maybe like another flavor thing, if you eat one that's not ripe, the astringency, which maybe isn't so much a flavor as like a phenomenon happening in your mouth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, it's not sour, but it just kind of sucks everything away.
Yeah, and there's lore around that too, isn't there? Like, don't people say like, don't eat them until after the first frost, and then it kind of takes that flavor away. But I've had some before the first frost, and they were sweet enough.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that too, but I haven't put it to the test.
Yeah, and people generally do eat them though after they've fallen, right?
Mm-hmm. With the American persimmons, yeah, because I think that's the most it's the most sure way to know that it's ripe is it's fallen and hit the ground.
Why do you think persimmon are not more kind of widely known? Why aren't we seeing them on the grocery store shelves? Like, unless you're from around the Midwest, you don't often even know about these.
Right. And I think, in my mind, the first thing that comes to mind is their seasonality. There's only about 3 weeks, August to September, that they're around. And usually, you'll only get them if you have some growing on your property or you have friends or you go to the farmer's market. And I feel like nowadays they're becoming a little bit more popular and the farmer's market is selling out. So it is hard to get them, I think. And then another huge factor is that they expire really easily, especially since persimmons, the American kind, when they drop, they're already ripe. They don't have a long shelf life, so you can't transport them very far from where they've fallen. And so I think that, and then American persimmons, when they fall, they hit the ground, which is usually soil. And so I think it's the FDA has said if it's touching the ground, it's been contaminated. So it would not be safe to be consumed or sold commercially.
That's really interesting because that would also explain why, because you can get persimmon pulp, but it's definitely not commercial.
Yeah.
You know, it's more like a farmer's market sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense now. Why? There's probably no way to really harvest. I'm sure someone could set something up where it doesn't touch the ground. Like I know a woman who has, we've done a story on this before, where she has like a net that will catch the persimmon. And so then they're not on the ground. But
but I think also just the fact that they expire so easily and are so sensitive. They're fragile, you know, like I put some in my tote bag when I visited my friend and brought them home, and like I had accidentally set like a notebook on top and it had squished them. So it's like very sensitive fruits. I've interviewed Roland Ricketts, who's a professor at the Eskenazi School here, and he does work with persimmon as a natural dye for textiles. And so we went to his studio and he showed me cloths that he had dyed. And he also had a persimmon dyed raincoat that he bought in Kyoto that was made in the 19th century.
Wow, that does sound like a very special object.
Yeah, I didn't know this until he told me, but persimmons are hydrophobic, or the tannin that they produce is. And so it's just kind of like a natural water repellent. And so even though this raincoat was paper, and he said
it was paper?
Yeah, it was paper. And so it would kind of be like the disposable plastic, like rain
like
jacket.
Poncho.
Yeah, ponchos that you can buy. And I guess this one just was never used and then preserved. But yeah, you can see like the orange dye. And then if you dye repeatedly, it'll become a darker and darker brown color until it's almost black. And so the outside was black, but then the inside was more orange-like. But yeah, it's paper and it has somehow just like lasted the test of time.
I was wondering if you had any persimmon recipes that we should know about.
I really don't have any persimmon recipes. Jiffy Treat will have seasonal persimmon soft serve. And I don't know about this year. Last year I tried to find it and it wasn't at the Bloomington one, but it was at the Ellettsville location. But I got it last year and I got it this year too. So I really enjoyed that. It is really, I would say it's kind of custardy too. I get a little bit of the persimmon, but I guess mainly I get like just vanilla or like a rich flavor. But it's cool, you know, that you can see the little like persimmon specks in it.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was Madison Sissel. She recently completed her dual master's degree in library science and folklore at Indiana University and is now enrolled at the University of Chicago's Divinity School. We have links to her digital archive, Voices of Pawpaws and Persimmons, as well as her interactive network map on our website, eartheats.org, where you will also find more stories and recipes featuring persimmons. That's it for this episode of Eats Wild, our special series on foraging and wild food. We have one more episode in the series where we'll learn about pawpaws, sumac, wild rice, and more. I hope you'll join us. The Earth Eats team includes Eobon Binder, Alex Chambers, Toby Foster, Leo Pies, Samantha Schimenauer, and we partner with Harvest Public Media. Special thanks this week to Liz Barnhart, Alan Bergo, Madison Sissel, Keako Liff, and Amy Countryman for connecting us. Earth Eats is produced and edited by me, Kate Young. Our theme music is composed by Aaron Toby and performed by Aaron and Matt Toby. Additional music on the show comes to us from Universal Production Music. Our executive producer is Eric Bolstridge.